Welcome to Bahamarico. I am your co-host Timmay from Nassau, the Bahamas.
And from New York City, I am Bryan Fonseca by way of Puerto Rico. Welcome to Bahamarico. As Timmy said, we are back for another episode of the Bahamarican Boys on 5 Regions Sports. And we have another guest for the third straight week. I'm going to try to get this last name because I know Ethan struggles with it. I know he struggled with it on a recent episode of 5 on the Floor. So this is the moment we've all been waiting for, okay? I'm putting Timmy, I'm a good teammate. I'm just taking the pressure right off you.
Yeah, because I tied tongue. I'd butcher her name.
Allana Tachauer?
Yeah, I got it. Spot on.
Right, cool, there we go. So can you explain to me the silent C? Because I think that's where Ethan probably looks at it.
See, I was gonna say if that's what Ethan struggled with, I'd understand. Ethan just like makes up my last name. Like it's different every time he tries it. But I will say the worst thing I've ever gotten not from Ethan is Allana Teacher. And I'm like, if you don't know how to spell teacher, I feel like we have bigger problems here.
If I was dyslexic and looking at it right now, maybe I could see how he thought, but no. If the dyslexic, but otherwise, Ethan's violent.
Ethan should take note though. That was like spot on first try.
I mean, and look at this. We have somebody from the Bahamas. We have somebody in New York, and Allana, you're joining us from Chicago on a network that's based in South Florida. So like, look at everything that's going on here. And I believe our producer David is based in Florida right now. So we're just all over the place here. But Allana, thank you for joining us. We have a lot of Chicago themed stuff that we're gonna get into. But
okay,
first,
I'm excited.
But first, we want to get into just your background a little bit, and I know that Timmy also has some questions that he wanted to get into as it relates to the Miami Heat as well. So we can start there. Timmy, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just want to know, how does a young lady from Chicago end up being a Heat fan?
So I couldn't tell you why, but in middle school, I was obsessed with both Wade and Carmelo Anthony. Like those were the only two players I knew anything about, and they were in college at the time. And once the Heat drafted Wade, I just kind of followed him. I will say, though, I was still a pretty diehard Bulls fan up until like 2010, 2011, when I actually started covering the team for NBC. Well, it was Comcast Sportsnet, but NBC Sports Now, and then realized that however bad the organization seemed to the outside, it was worse when you were trying to cover the team as a member of the media. So I was like, I can't deal with this anymore. Just jump ship fully to the Heat because, I mean, the culture is bar none. But yeah, it all started with Wade.
So I've been a Heat fan from 2002 since growing up Butler. Miami is a half-hour flight from the Bahamas, of course. And so I feel like you was conflicted a lot of times because the Kirk Heinrich and Wade battles, you had the Haslam Bloody, the Nocioni days, you have Boozer choosing between the Heat, you had Bosch and maybe going to Chicago. So there's a lot of similarities between the two franchises. So in those moments, did you find yourself sometimes wanting maybe Wade to come back to Chicago early 2010, or were you where were you at that point?
So at that point, I was pretty much fully on like the Bulls train. Obviously, I respected Wade still, but also the Heat organization. But that was, kind of like the highlight of the Derrick Rose era, Taj and all those guys. And like I said, I was working with the team, so getting to know them a little bit more. Like I feel like my allegiance was still there. But it's hilarious you bring up Boozer because I feel like that is just like when Boozer came here, I feel like Chicago was just completely deflated, and it's nothing against him. It was just, our expectations were so high, and then the organization was like, don't worry, we got you Carlos Boozer.
Amari.
Right.
Boozer.
Yeah. And so he came there, and then the whole thing with the spray painted hair, it was.
But you forgot the broken, remember he's lifting suitcases and broke his arm?
Didn't he trip over some boxes? If memory, like he was unpacking his house or something.
We've never really. People always said he was lying, but basically before the season started, he tripped over some boxes and broke his arm.
Honestly, having dealt with him a few times, like I kind of believe it, just because that's like so in his nature to just be that clumsy. I mean, it can happen to anyone, right? But yeah, I mean, that was a hilarious time where I feel like half the team was super solid. But then the kind of corresponding pieces there, we were like, what are we doing?
Keith Bogans, Ronnie Brewer.
Yeah, and also Keith Bogans was such a great guy. And that's the thing. I feel like they were all great human beings, like off the court. It was just really hard to understand and support what the front office was doing, because it was like, where are you getting these pieces from? But like I said, once I kind of started getting deeper into the media side, I was just not about the antics. So then I kind of just fully jumped ship.
And it's one thing. Sorry, Brian. I just want to know, 'cause one thing, the allegiance wise jump ship. How are you able to be Chicago based and cover this Heat team? Like, what was that step?
Yeah, so I think honestly the first step to that was I was getting my master's degree in new media here, but I concentrated in sports media, and I can't even remember how it happened, but I actually ended up connecting with Wes Goldberg, who at the time was the editor for All You Can Heat through Fansided. And he asked me to join the staff as a writer. And then I think like one season later, I actually took over the site from him because he ended up, I think, covering the Warriors for a little bit. And so it was really odd because a lot of people here hated the Heat at the time, still kind of aren't the biggest fans, but at that time especially. So for me to go from, oh yeah, I'm covering them with, NBC Sports, to like, I'm actually taking over a Heat site now. And then I ended up actually writing for the Miami Heat themselves through Tip Off, the magazine. So it was an interesting transition in terms of kind of being in Chicago at the time, but I didn't really feel like I was at a disadvantage in terms of location. It was just more so people in my personal life being like, excuse me, are you kidding me? You're just going to go to the Heat now? But I have never looked back.
So my main thing would be like, because obviously there was that rivalry during the LeBron years in particular, where there was the playoff matchups, there was Nazir Muhammad shoving LeBron. And if you watch that clip, by the way, back, like you'll see that Jimmy Butler just kind of sidesteps LeBron as he's falling and just acts like it didn't even happen.
But, is anyone surprised?
I watched it the other day because I sometimes will like YouTube just, different basketball fights and stuff, but that's another conversation for another day. But I'm wondering, how did you experience those years? Because you weren't a Heat fan yet, right?
I was a Heat fan from the standpoint of like, I just really respected the culture and I wanted the Bulls to run the organization similarly. I knew we would never get to that point, but it was more so almost from like a business perspective. I was like, why aren't we doing this? Especially with the roster we had. I felt the team was owed more and the fans definitely for sure. But yeah, in terms of actually supporting the team at that time, I was still like diehard Bulls fan. Like I had a Derrick Rose keychain and my phone case was Rose and my bat, like everything was all Bulls at the time. So to make that transition was crazy thereafter.
So wait, so I'm like,
I have the Derrick Rose fat head on my wall. Like
she has she writing with Derrick Rose. She's writing articles. What's the Heat with a Derrick Rose like bobblehead, like just looking at her.
I was like living two completely different lives at that point.
What's the hardest conversation you had with a family member where you were like, okay, look, in terms of like you're like, look, I have to explain my allegiance. I just like the way they do shit over here.
Honestly,
this Garpax thing is not really gonna work for me. Like, whatever it was.
I think, to be honest, that made it a little bit easier almost because you could not find a Bulls fan that was supporting Garpax anymore. I can't remember what year it was, but a bunch of people commissioned a billboard right off our biggest expressway. And it was just hashtag fire Garpax. It got taken down within a day. But yeah, I mean, when you start the conversation that way, there's really no arguing against it. Like, what are people going to say? No, like we have a better organization or we run things better. Like there's no argument to be made there. I think it was more so just like, how do you go from supporting Rose and Taj and, Joakim Noah to then jumping ship against a team where, I mean, Noah hated the Heat.
Hated LeBron.
And that's the thing too. I think LeBron was a big part of that as well. But I mean, I do what I want. People are kind of used to that. So it was a interesting transition, but I feel like, I mean, again, you can't really dispute that the culture there is unparalleled.
Before we get into some other stuff, because we have a lot of other stuff we're going to get to. Before we get into some other stuff, how would you compare? Because we've all talked about it, obviously, at this network. You've talked about it on Field the Heat, your show here on this network. How do you feel like this Heat team, in terms of teams that you've liked since really following the Heat, compares for you personally? Like, it's too early to say, is this your favorite Heat team so far? Because we're still in January, but like, how would you compare them, in comparison to other teams?
It's up there. If not my favorite. I just feel like this Heat team, like the identity is exactly what Pat Riley has always wanted. Obviously there are struggles, not only because of, health concerns, but I think there are still a few voids that we need to get a little bit better about filling. But in terms of like the actual personnel and the way they go about their business, I think this is it. I will say there was something, and I know people are not going to agree with me, but there was something lovable about kind of the struggle, within the era of Goran and Jay Rich and Winslow. I understand people's frustration with a lot of what was happening during that time, but to go from the big three and then being at least somewhat excited that Bosch decided to stick around to then getting hit with the news of his blood clots, like that team struggled, but they were still able to keep a great identity. I think even UD was such an integral part to me of that team and keeping kind of the brotherhood together and morale high that I don't think that people spend enough time kind of looking back on like the so-called forgotten years, because that team still carried the culture day in and day out. They weren't doing great. And they made some questionable moves with the contracts,
The
but
extensions,
yeah, to me, it was just like they were doing what they thought was best in the moment. And I think that, as a huge Goran fan, he definitely started to feel like kind of like the sweat, blood, and tears of the team. So I also do respect that time pretty highly.
And while you mentioned him, how do you feel about Dragic basically living in Miami these past few weeks, watching our games?
I love it. It's like peak savagery, peak trolling. I
like
don't know what's going on. Yeah, I don't know what's going on over there, clearly. And the thing is, I knew already when we let go of him and he was kind of coming out and saying that he already misses the Heat and the fact that he's wearing, Heat gear. I knew there were going to be some bumps in the road, but I did not think it was going to come to this.
5 games. He played 5 games
yep.
before he got
But I called it.
And they
I
need
said
him.
Until the Heat. I said that we're going to get him back. There's 0% chance he's not coming back to Miami. I don't know how and when, but it's happening. Like, just mark my words right now.
I feel so too. I honestly feel so too. I think he'll probably go to the Dallas to get a couple months with Doncic, but he'll come back home in the summer.
I think he's gonna be back at some point. Also, he clearly wants to be back. All right, let's get into some career stuff because Allana, you and I have some parallels, where we both worked at a college while doing the media thing at the same time. So for me, I graduated in 2016 from St. Francis College. Coincidentally, I have the pen here right next to me to commemorate that. But St. Francis College in Brooklyn, I have to clarify, because there was also a St. Francis in PA in the middle of nowhere, if I'm being honest. And it snows like crazy over there. But worked there as an assistant in the athletics office as the SID, Assistant Director of Athletic Communications, while also covering the Nets, covering boxing, covering high school sports, and all these other things in this area, and doing some TV here also. So you've had sort of a similar thing where you were working at a school, working on the athletic side, but then, as you mentioned, writing about the Heat, doing all these different things. What were those years like, and how are you able to do it, just from your experience?
And it's funny because I feel like my entire life I've lived 7 lives at the same time. It's not like in my nature to just have like a 9-to-5 office job where that's it, and the second you clock out, like your day's over. So it was definitely a lot of work. 14, 16-hour days, but I loved it. And to me, it was kind of giving me the best of both worlds, where I could tap into kind of one skill set of mine and, let's be honest, have a little bit of a more stable life in terms of salary and whatnot. But then I also got to do what I loved. And for me, there was a time when there was a lot going on. I worked for a actually career advancement department at the same university that I also covered the men's basketball team, and I was their one-stop shop for basically media marketing. And then I covered the Heat through fan-sided still, as well as tip-off. But then I also actually was a guest star on an NBC show, Bulls Outsiders. So I was also covering the Bulls, and it was a lot, but it was fun. To me, I think it's just basically having to wear a lot of different hats and realizing that you need to like tap into different parts of yourself at the same time. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't trade it for the world. I also think that, I was a freelancer basically for 6 years, and those skills and kind of the work ethic I picked up, you just can't get from a, so-called normal 9 to 5 office job. So I mean, it's still a balance now, but I do think there's something to be said for, a lot of the sports media work is done at night or on the weekends. And so it doesn't really eat up time that, you would be working a regular job. So to me, if you love what you're doing, it doesn't really feel like work anymore.
Yeah, like I remember, like we're gonna trade war stories a little bit here. Timmy, like you
Taking notes,
Timmy,
taking notes.
yeah, like yo, because we talked about this. There were times, and I think Timmy and I already knew each other at this point, so he may even recall a little bit of this. But there
You
were
mean
times
the
where, like,
Nets daily stuff?
2017, 18, yeah, where I would be like on a Friday, I'll be at Nets practice, and I will have talked to whatever Trevor Booker, Isaiah Whitehead, whatever. This was not the big 3 days, okay? This was before that. And then that night, I would be at some sort of high school basketball game, and then the next Saturday, it would be like, all right, we have a trip to Staten Island. We have to go and play this school, whatever, 1 o'clock, come back, and then I have a fight that Saturday night. And then Sunday, I get to chill, and then we have another game Monday. And then it's like you have to go in and out, wear all these different hats. You touched on it, Allana, but like, what has that really taught you? Because the instability, there's something to come from that. I'm still experiencing that now to some degree, but you get to take a lot from that, and it teaches you a lot about yourself, how you react to things, and how adaptable you are.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that comes to mind most is, and I believe they were back-to-back nights, but the men's basketball team that I was working for had their media day, and I think that started. I think it was from like 8 to 9 in the morning. But I had a 9 to 5 at the same university during that time, and so I was up at like, I don't know, 5 a.m., taking care of the business that I knew I would be missing out from that 8 to 9 slot, when I then had to go to their media day, cover all of that, go in the office. And again, my 9 to 5 was definitely not a 9 to 5. I was honestly usually in 7:30, probably leaving at 7 p.m., just because of the nature of how, that business was. And then the next day, I had to go back into the office for my quote unquote regular job, and then go on Bulls Outsiders that night. So the Bulls game ended at maybe 9:30. I had to be there for the start of the Bulls game. So by the time I got home, I had been going straight from 7 a.m. to 1 in the morning. But I wasn't tired because it was everything I loved to do, right? I loved my regular job. And then I got to go and watch the Bulls game at the studio and then be on TV commenting on it afterwards. Like, what is there to complain about? It was a lot of coffee and a lot of snacks along the way, and just mentally kind of being strong. But I think the mental toughness is one thing, and also time management, because if you don't have that, honestly, good luck trying to schedule everything at once and making sure that nothing is suffering. Because I mean, I by no means could have let any balls drop. My regular job knew about all the other engagements, and as long as I was staying on top of it, they were fine with it. At that point, I had been with the college basketball team for, I think, 6 seasons. So it was, at least we had the rapport of, they knew that I was going to get, everything done regardless of what else was going on. But I think mental toughness and time management would be the two key things there.
What's the wildest story you have of like a single day, 24-hour period or something where you had to cram a lot of stuff in? And so I could filibuster while you think about that. There was one, I told Timmy about this before, where like we were in Connecticut, and not like the Connecticut that's close to New York, like the other side of Connecticut that's closer to Maine. We had a game at Central Connecticut State on like a Saturday, and I wanted to make it back in time for a fight. So coincidentally, somebody who I freelance with at this newspaper, a photographer, he worked with me, and he was also working on the team as their manager because he was still a student at the same college. So I got us a couple of bus tickets, $25 each on the Peter Pan. We hopped on that shit, got from Connecticut, left at like probably 5:30, got to Penn Station at like 7:30, hopped on the train, got to the Barclays Center around 8 in time for the fight. I don't even remember what the fight was, but it was a pretty big fight. It might have been Errol Spence versus somebody. I'm a boxing head, an MMA head, so like I'm going to do shit like that. So we went from Rhode Island on that trip to Connecticut to like Barclays Center within like a day. just to like try to make all this sort of different work happen. So do you have a similar story?
Mine isn't as travel heavy, but I was on the road. I think I went to Wash U with the college team, and I think it's not too long of a bus drive. It was probably like 6 hours. But we played that night, as did
Timmy?
Not too
is
long.
that a long is that a long ride? Okay.
Yes.
Well,
6.5 on a bus. I mean,
it might have been like, I think with stops, we might have stopped somewhere, but I think overall it was like a 6 hour. But the main problem was that we played that night. However, the Heat also played that night, and I was also the editor of the fan-sided site, which means that I had to either create content or edit or both. And so it was basically, luckily the Heat game started a little bit before the college game started. So I caught a little bit of the Heat game on my phone. I was writing an article on my phone as I was basically getting dressed for the game that I was covering in person at Wash U. Then I had to hand off the rest of the stuff to one of my writers. But then during that game, I had to edit his work. So it was I don't know how I survived that and how honestly any legible articles came out of that evening. But I think that was the craziest, just in terms of like having to juggle two things at once, also being on the road and not even having my computer because there was no Wi-Fi. So I was just stuck writing an article on my phone and editing on my phone as well. It was wild, but everything got done. And I think we won that game too.
Awesome. Yeah, I see. Yo, and Timmy, here's the thing too, like about this stuff, like low key, especially when you're working at a college, your job is kind of a little bit easier when the team you're covering loses, and typically by a lot. Yeah. Just saying, you know what I mean?
You have time during the blood.
You just have time to bang out your story right away, and then it's like, all right, I can get on to the next thing. But that's the thing about that lifestyle, Allana, as you know, it's always about going on to the next thing, the next thing, the next thing.
But there's like an adrenaline rush that you get from it. Like there's a high that people don't understand because they're like, how are you not tired? Like I will never forget that night when I was at the Bulls Outsider show. Like the guys at that time were working, I think, just like from home or something. And so they'd been chilling all day, came in, and they're like, oh man, like, I'm just starting my day now. I'm like, I've been at my office since 7 in the morning. It was now 7 p.m. We had to watch the game and then be on. And they're like, how are you alive? And I'm just like, I don't know. Like it's like a natural high, obviously. Also a lot of coffee, but that comes from it that people just don't get.
So what I can relate to is, you guys know, Battle for Atlantis is like one of the biggest NCAA tournaments. Yeah. They have at Thanksgiving, and I've always had a 9 to 5. So and most of my 9 to 5s, I'm social media manager, so it's not 9 to 5, it's all day.
Yeah.
So I've usually have to, so I work on 9 to 6 or 9 to 5, and then the games run from 7 to 9. So for Thanksgiving week every year for the last 10 years, that same weekend, I literally up from 7, drop daughter off to school, go to work, pick up daughter, drop her off, go back to work, go to Atlantis, cover these games, take pictures, press conferences, remember all these ATMs. And then, so I'm used to that. Like it's crazy. And people say, why? But it's like you said, we love basketball. So it's not work. I mean, I'm sitting on a hard court, taking pictures with my laptop, tweeting scores, editing pictures. But it's fun because you love to cover the game.
Yeah, it's just much more natural. Like for me, I can't have a regular job or office or whatever. Some people could, right? Like there's no problem with that. Like for me though, I just can't do it. Like under normal circumstances, if it's 9 to 5, if it's like super structured in that way, like I like structure, but not when it's to a T and it's like, all right, so I'm here from 9 to 5 because I'm just super replaceable. And if I don't want to do this, you can get someone else to do it. So
well, and that's why, my prior so-called 9 to 5 was not a 9 to 5, but I liked that. I liked the fact that every day, I mean, I was just putting out fires all day long. I was coming in early, staying late. My team was responsible for a lot of events. And so it was never like the same thing day in and day out. So that alone, I think much more fit kind of my freelance background than anything else. And even, in my role now, I do digital media. It is less hectic in the sense of it is more normal hours. But for me, it's still every day is different because we're creating different content. We have to, cover different events. the whole kind of 9 to 5 in front of a computer doing the same thing day in and day out, that's not who I am.
I can't do it.
Yeah. See, younger 5 Reasons Sports watchers and listeners, see, there's a lot of different ways you can do this. You know what I mean? It's a lot of different ways you could try to make this work and make shit happen. But now let's get into some non-sports stuff.
So right before we go to that, I wore the Jimmy shirt because I always thought the story was hilarious. And this is how time is not real. Time is just a fabric of our imagination. Jimmy was a rookie when the Big Three formed and said how he didn't want to play for the Heat. So it's so crazy that LeBron was already like at the height of his powers and Jimmy was a rookie. Now fast forward, Jimmy and LeBron are going head to head. We saw him last week and we saw him in the finals. Where were you at that moment when Jimmy was like F the Heat, and now he's like, how are you with that transformation?
So I guess 2 things. First, I was actually against the Big Three, and I like to call myself out on this because I know someone's going to dig up the tweets. I've not deleted them. I didn't like the fact, or I guess in theory, the fact that, LeBron, I didn't really mind Bosh, but LeBron was going to come in and take Wade's team. I didn't like that at all. I wanted, obviously, the Heat to succeed as much as possible, but I'm like, can we just do this another way? Like, LeBron's going to come in here. It's going to be the LeBron show. And that was coming from someone who I respected LeBron. I was a fan. So at first I was not on board with that. It took me about 6 to 8 months to kind of be like, okay, I've bought into this. When the rumors with Jimmy first started, I was like, is this going to be a good fit? Because I had heard some stuff in Chicago, obviously, and then thereafter, the whole kind of locker room cancer. I never bought into it as fully as what was being reported, but I was like, if he comes here, he's going to have to do it the Heat way. It's not going to be the Jimmy show. It's going to be kind of the new era of Jimmy where he's conforming to what, the Heat need him to be. So I was skeptical on that as well. But I mean, I came around really quickly once kind of the media day started, and he just embraced the culture, I think, right away. And it was clear that he was ready to basically shed kind of all the narratives that have been formed about him along the way. So I was happy that Jimmy came, and I'm all in on the Jimmy era.
And lastly, question: that 1 year that Wade played in Chicago, how perfect was that for you, or were you not able to cover it as much?
I was at least, I think I was at 2 of those games at least, and they were probably the most intense games that I've ever seen in person. The hatred coming from Chicago fans. I mean, there were fights breaking out. Someone got removed because they literally picked up an entire trash can in the hallway and tried to throw it at someone else. I can tell you flat out that I just wore normal clothes. I was like, I'm not wearing gear from either team because I'm 5'2", I'm gonna get pummeled. So yeah, it was intense, but it was so much fun.
All right, let's get into some non-sports stuff because Timmy, I know you had some music questions.
Yeah.
And then I have a game that we're gonna play later, but we're gonna get to that a little bit after. Music, Timmy, start us off.
Yes, I just wonder, what do you listen to when you got about? So I think I said this, but I listen to maybe 4 podcasts a week. I listen to Feel the Heat, I listen to 5 on the Floor, I listen to on Bahamian podcast, and I listen to Jack Lowe. So I hear your voice literally every week. So just it's where I'm listening.
Very much appreciate that.
Yeah. And I am a big fan, and I always know that you never really catch Michael's pop culture references. So I was always curious, what do you actually listen to?
Me and Michael could not be more different in a lot of ways, but especially on that front. I would have to say, if I have to pick my top 3 most listened to artists, Kehlani, Summer Walker, and Big Sean. Michael,
I like the vibes.
Michael and I mean, we literally can't have conversations about music in particular, somewhat TV and shows and movies too, because we were we don't know what each other are talking about. So it's hilarious that you bring that up because he'll say something and I'm just do I pretend I know what you're talking about? But I'm just at this point, it's just it's
I would get it, but then I can see the complete confusion on your face.
And before we actually started doing a visual recording alongside of it, there were times when I'd have to be can you just edit it out? Because it would just be silence on my end. He'd say something and I'm just I have no idea what you're referring to.
And that's why I wanted to ask you, how did you guys connect? Because like, at least me and Brian, we've been tweeting each other for like years about basketball. And every time I went to the draft, I connected with them. And
we met in person.
So we've met a couple times. So we used to just tweet a lot, and like we turned our DMs into a pod. So how would you and Michael, like how did that come out to you, lead?
I think like about a year ago now, I woke up to a random DM from Michael, asking basically if I had heard of Clutch Corner and if I'd be interested in it. And I'm going to air Michael out at this point. The way he phrased it made it seem like he just wanted me to like hop on as a guest, right? So I'm just skimming this. I'm like, oh yeah, sure. Just let me know when. And I think by my response, he like got that I was like not understanding what he was saying. And he was like, no, like we're looking for a fourth member. Can you send through some, work that you've done before? Are you comfortable with like talking to Ethan? And I was like, oh, you want me to like join the show? So we went back and forth for a little bit. And then Adam somehow got involved as well. And then I had a phone call with Ethan, which Ethan and time zones has been such a struggle. We're like fine now, but in the beginning, I would be like Central. I'm in Chicago. And he's like, yeah. So I'm in the middle of not even at home. And my phone's ringing and it's Ethan Skolnick. And I'm like, did we not say an hour from now? So I pick up, I'm like literally out of breath. I'm on the elliptical and I'm like, yeah, sure. Whatever, I'm in. He's talking about like, do you want a contract? I'm like, I don't need a contract. Like I totally have respected you for like years on years. I love what you're doing with the network. Count me in. And then he's like, all right, well, do you have time to talk to Adam and Michael today? And I'm like, sure, let me just hop in the shower. And I come on for this interview. They love calling it an interview. I don't know what kind of interviews they've been a part of. It was not an interview. I'm sitting there sopping wet hair out of the shower, cup of coffee. I'm not even awake. And they're talking this, that, and the other. I'm like, listen, like whatever you want, count me in. Sure. Like I've skimmed your show before. And that was basically the beginning. And then after that, Michael had some commitments come up. He was doing a lot with Onside Radio and with the Dolphins side. So he didn't have time for Clutch Corner anymore. But in the meantime, we were like, we have a great dynamic. People keep talking about how we like fight like a married couple. And I'm like, we should capitalize on this. And it's especially funny just because like, to your point, we're complete opposites. And so we never understand each other's references. So I'm like, this could be really funny. And ended up doing a podcast. I will also air this out, which I'm not sure if I've ever publicly said. We actually were not planning on having the podcast as part of the network for any other reason, but we thought that the Heat side was oversaturated and we didn't think that Ethan would want us. So I texted Ethan as a courtesy to just be like, heads up, Michael and I are doing this podcast completely for fun. It's not going to take away from my time on Clutch Corner. And Ethan's like, oh, well, like, we'll take your pod. And I texted Michael like, so I by accident got us as a part of the network. And he was like, what? And I'm like, yeah, sorry, I don't know how this happened. So I don't know if Ethan even knows that we had not planned to be a part of the network, but here we are, sponsored. Very appreciative to Ethan for that.
To win live reads.
Yeah. I mean, it went from like, let's do this for fun as a hobby to like, now we're doing visuals and we're getting sponsored. So definitely didn't expect that. But it's been a wild ride. And honestly, like Michael's now one of my best friends. So it's crazy how much that's developed.
But I like that you brought up Summer Walker. I think Body was my favorite R&B song last year. So
Come Through is literally my favorite song of all time.
Well, the radio plays it too much. So I hate it now because the radio plays it like so it's a great song.
That hurts my soul. I probably listen to it 50
but I hear
times
it too much. I hear it too much.
There's no such thing.
I love Body. Like I love Body, and I love.
Wait, Allana, you don't have a song that you feel like you've heard too much?
Not by Summer Walker. It's funny you bring up Body though, because one of my best friends, I think like last week or the week before, she was like, I have to confess, every time I hear that song, I think of you and I can't even understand why.
I love it.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
I do have some songs that I've heard a lot, but a lot of them as Timmy knows are Drake songs, so we're gonna get to that another time for another day.
I'm a Drake fan. I'm just not like I'm not like live or die by him.
You're not getting the hard cut.
Look, I think he's fine. Just like it's kind of like I can't believe I'm about to make this parallel, but we're here. Fuck it. Like Drake, to me, I kind of look at him the same way I look at Rudy Gobert. They're very good at what they do. Just don't put them in any GOAT conversations, and I'm okay with that.
I
Okay?
think my problem is people make being a fan of him like their personality
Right,
almost.
right.
Oh God, Nicki Minaj, Beyonce.
Yeah, and I think I actually don't like Beyonce, and that is probably my biggest secret of all time. Because I have been
The hive comes up.
They won't. 30. Look, we're not clipping this part. Ricky, don't even think about it. All right, because we're not.
I got into
getting
a
anybody
fight
in
at a
trouble.
Halloween party about this, and ironically, I was literally Ariana Grande that year, but I got in a full-fledged fight about Beyonce. I was like, that girl has no personality. I'm like, I know that you're talented, but like, who are you? Every year, all you do is come out with like something that's on trend. I don't know who you are anymore. Like, I'm not a fan of her, but yeah, people have come after me for that take for sure.
But everyone knows my brand is I support everything Bahamian, and her father is Bahamian, so naturally I lend my support that way. That's my brand.
I'm like that with Puerto Ricans, but there ain't no Puerto Ricans here to speak of. This actually goes right into our this or that's, because we're gonna play this or that with Allana now. That we did with Ethan and Greg, which I think
amazing.
Was it with both?
Amazing.
Yeah. No,
it was amazing.
I did catch that. Yes.
Yes. So, and we can start there because I don't actually have this one written down. I do have a bunch written down, which Timmy's seen. So Timmy's gonna give his thoughts on some of these as well, perhaps. But Rihanna or Beyonce? I guess we could start there since we were just talking. Okay, yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Cool. Timmy, are you on the same?
No, I actually love Rihanna, even though I support my Bahamian sister. Rihanna is no Barbados. Like, I just love what she's done because Rihanna could be someone who I went to school with, who became like, that's the type of trajectory she's had. She literally could have been someone I went to school with. Now she's making money off of everything. So like, I'm a huge
her
fan.
Business acumen is
booming.
Crazy.
Yo, I've thought about trying the Fenty for Men. I've thought about getting on that, and I might do it. So we'll see. We'll see at some point. Free plug, but they should probably sponsor that. If they sponsor me, I'll definitely do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I could use some skincare.
Inclusive. We got the Puerto Ricans using it now. You know?
I'd be stressed out. I'd be breaking out a little bit. Like, I could use some Fenty. All right. Jimmy Butler with the Bulls or Jimmy Butler with the Heat, Allana?
Jimmy with the Heat.
Yeah, felt like that was an easy one.
Yeah.
Rank these Jordans: Jordan 3s, Jordan 1s, Jordan 11s, Jordan 4, or other.
Ooh. I think I'm gonna have to go with the 3s.
First?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably.
I agree, though.
Yeah. And this is a stupid reason, but I just feel like on my feet personally,
I love how 3s look at women. Like, I hate how 3s look at my feet. I hate how they look on my feet. They're too flat.
Honestly, people don't think about this too much because I have some LeBron 9s. They look awful on me. Awful. They're great. I love them. I have the South Beaches. I will never give those up, but they look like trash on me. So that's like something to consider. I feel like the 11s would come after that. And then everything else is just kind of.
Well, I own like 5 pairs of ones.
Okay.
Is it weird that I like Air Force Ones, but I don't really love Jordan 1s?
Yes, it is weird.
Yeah, why?
I feel like every time I will get a pair of Jordan 1s in my hand, they're just bulkier.
Okay.
Air Force Ones aren't. You know what I mean? Like, See, and we're talking about LeBrons. That's sort of my problem with LeBron sneakers is they're mad
so
bulky.
clunky.
They're
oh my
mad
god! And
bulky.
I'm a small human, so on my feet they look ridiculous. Like, it's like it has to be the perfect outfit that I can even pull off with them. But I'm keeping them forever.
Right? Yeah.
So I got one. Chicago drill or a trap.
Ooh, yes.
Probably trap.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Probably.
I didn't expect that. You don't like drill music? You don't like drill rap?
It's not that I don't, but if I had to pick, I think I'm very much like my mood depends on what I listen to. Every morning, like you'll never catch me, even though Summer Walker will come up at some point during the day, but every morning is like something different because it like the way that I wake up, I then listen to a playlist based on how I'm feeling. So
Timmy, I have one for you then. To take me and Allana out of this, because this is our sort of coasts. Brooklyn drill or Chicago drill?
Right now, I have really taken to Brooklyn drill. Like,
the
last year.
I figured that was gonna be the answer.
the last year.
When you thought about it, I was like, he's gonna say Brooklyn because look, Chicago was doing it. I think London was actually doing it first.
Yeah,
Like,
London did it first. Yeah,
I don't know if
London
Chicago or London was okay. Chicago drew, London drew, or Brooklyn drew. Right now,
right? Like I said, I think right now the biggest
Brooklyn?
is Brooklyn, but I put London last.
Fabio,
but like I listen to 5E a lot.
Since we're here, Allana, rank these Chicago artists however you'd like. Common, Lupe Fiasco, Vic Mensa, Chance the Rapper, Chief Keef.
I want to add in Mick Jenkins.
And Mick Jenkins. That's a good one.
Okay, I don't really love any of them. It's not my vibe. Here's the thing. There's caveats here. Okay. First off, I respect the mess out of Chance, and I do. There are some songs that I
understand. You need to explain. You need to explain. I understand.
Yeah. No.
We're
probably with you on. We're probably with you on.
I was a huge acid rap fan, but I hate and I'm sorry to say this as a married man, but when Chance got married, I was like, wait, this sounds like trash. Like, why are you? I don't want to hear this happy foolishness. Like, I love acid rap.
Again, I respect the mess out of him. It's just he's not my vibe. None of those are really my vibe. I will say though, Chief Keefs don't like that remix. Like, I think that was my ringtone at some point. Like that is my vibe. But like, Chief Keef is so problematic as a human.
Yeah.
Chicago artists and I don't really. It's not my thing.
But Common and Lupe. So you're not very the deep.
Well, okay, Lupe current I could understand. Old Lupe I like.
It's not my mood.
You don't like Common either?
I feel like I respect them as artists, but I don't listen to their music now.
Two of my favorite rap songs of all time involve Common. Like I used to love her, and the song with Badu, basically saying the ode to hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Timmy, there's another artist one, but I'm not gonna like Greg Sylvander. I don't touch this person. So go
it's
ahead.
Kanye West or what was the other person? It was Kanye.
I can't say it.
I know. I'm gonna say it. Kanye or
it's just him, but he has 3 different names. Remember? His current name, and then the name where he, you see, Alana's already rolling her eyes.
How do you feel about Mr. West? Mr. West.
Yeah, we could just simplify it that way.
I don't even know if I have a simple answer for that. Do I respect his musical genius? Absolutely. As a person, though, I don't listen. The man needs help, and I think what kills me is that like you have 4 kids and you're out here behaving like that. Like
a child.
I can't.
I can't separate art from artist there. I can't do it.
It's hard. Actually, I don't know if you guys have seen, there's some like weird documentary on YouTube about him that like, I don't know if it came out on Friday. I was forced into it.
So it's Netflix and they didn't make it with him. And he actually is mad that because he wanted to like edit it before it came out.
Is it on Netflix? Because I couldn't.
Yeah, it's on Netflix.
Okay, because there's one that was on YouTube that dropped, and I don't know if it was from Netflix and they put it on there. And I didn't know a lot of what was in there, to be honest, and that made me respect him a little bit more and see him in a different light. I was forced into watching it because I would not have chosen to watch it on my own. But there are things that I think really played into who has become now, like not in a good way. And I would never put someone down for what they've been through. To me, it's like, again, you have 4 kids, like just
seek help.
Yeah. That's about it. Musically though, yes, he's a genius.
I mean, I would say was, but we don't have to go there. Cubs or White Sox?
I don't like baseball, but I'm going with the Sox because I live in the South Side and I've lived here for a long time. So,
well, I can't ask my Sammy Sosa question then. It was just going to be Sammy Sosa, yes or no. That was going to be it. Because
I don't.
Yeah. No, I understand. Timmy,
yeah.
you know about Sammy Sosa?
Yeah.
All right. Do you know about Sam Sosa? Or do you know about Sammy Sosa? There's a distinction being made there. That's important. It's lazy, but we have to do it because I'm from New York and you're from Chicago, and I think you know where I'm going with this now that I've set this up, Allana. Your style pizza or our style pizza?
Okay, well, I'm going with ours. The only thing is that I can't eat dairy, so my pizza now has vegan cheese on it, which like, is that even pizza anymore? So I don't think I have a right to comment on pizza at this point in my life.
Timmy, have you had both?
I haven't had Chicago one yet. I've had New York pizza. And I had a LA pizza. I was like, okay, this is whatever. And it's pizza.
I've never had Chicago. Just it looks like a lot of tomato sauce for me personally. So I've never
It's
had
a lot
it.
of sauce and it's a lot of cheese, but like the dough itself, getting all of that, like that kind of makes up for it. But again, like I feel like at this point, no one, whenever I bring up pizza, they're like, you don't really eat pizza. You don't have real cheese on it. Like you have no room to say anything. So I'm like, you're not really wrong.
Okay, one more. MVP Derrick Rose or current John Morant?
I actually would have had this answer.
So you said you can't like kind of separate Kanye the artist as a person. Derrick Rose for me is such a problematic figure.
Ooh. And a lot of
I actually forgot about that because it went so quiet. But now
can I have a little bit of a story here? I remember when they were doing the trials, and if people don't know what we're talking about, there was a rape case involving Derrick Rose. I don't remember how long ago it was, but it was several years ago. And when he was in court for that, there were a couple different times where he worked out at St. Francis where I was working. So they had to block off our gym or whatever the case may be, because I guess it was right there, probably in Brooklyn somewhere. And we're like a big part of Brooklyn, downtown Brooklyn, right? All the train stations, Borough Hall, that whole shit. So there were people like trying to get photos of him and all these kind of trying to get photos with him because he's Derrick Rose, and as though that was going on. So yeah, I mean, you have a confliction there that I don't think a lot of people have held on to. They kind of just let it go, and they've turned.
I see a lot of people that just like push to the side.
Yeah, they deem him likable and turn him into a sympathetic.
Well, and see, my thing was it was never about the allegation, because I mean I'm not going to get into this whole thing. I don't necessarily think he was guilty one way or the other. I don't know if you guys have seen the transcripts. I don't know if you And so a lot of what he said to me was just so problematic that I can't look at him the same way. Also, when the trial wrapped, he took pictures with the jury. It was the way he was conducting himself. With that said, he is not the brightest bulb. And I don't say that even to put him down, but it is fact. I have interviewed him many times. I've heard a lot of stories while he was here. And so I don't really think a lot of what he was doing was ill-willed. It was just not knowing better.
Just ignorance.
It is ignorance. A lot of it was the fact that his brother, Reggie, he should have never been part of his team. Reggie influenced a lot of what he did along the way. So to me, not that I excuse it, but I don't think he's a bad guy. It was just a lot of what he did rubbed me wrong. With that said, I still think I pick him in his MVP days because he was incredible.
That was different. He was different.
He was and it wasn't even only what he was doing on the court, but it was his whole life. I mean, he wanted that so badly, and he made sure to do whatever it took, even alongside his no good brother, and even kind of just with the media being in his face at all times. I have never met a player who hated being interviewed more. I mean, if Derrick could get away from the media, he would take any opportunity. He didn't like it. He didn't want that. He was there to play ball, and I respected it. It's just, I don't like, to both of your points, how everything's kind of just been swept and no one really thinks about kind of what that trial did and how he acted during the whole thing.
Still getting all-star votes too.
Yeah.
One more to end it on a brighter note, to end this portion on a brighter note. Best interview story while covering the Chicago Bulls.
So there was a fan event, and I had gotten tickets for free to it. Actually, through someone on Twitter. They were randomly like, I have extra tickets. Do you want to go? I knew I also had to work that event for NBC later. You're not allowed to do that. You can't be a fan and media at the same time. But I had a bright idea of going to the first part of the event as a fan, quickly changing, putting my media badge on, whatever, and then covering the event. Didn't get that cleared by anyone. I was just determined to do this. I went ahead, got everything signed, chatted with the players, whatever. I then come back as media to cover it, and Keith Bogans, right as I'm interviewing him, goes, hold up, didn't I see you here? Didn't I sign something for you like half an hour ago? And I'm like, looking at him. My cameraman is dying of laughter. And I'm like, can we not roll yet? So I'm like, listen, sir. All right, you might have seen me here, but now I'm a new me. So like, let's like never talk about that again. And my cameraman just like, I won't tell anyone. We start all over again. I got the interview. So I got a ball sign. I got photos. I got a t-shirt. And Keith Bogans almost just completely ratted me out. But that was probably the best moment I've had.
Wow.
So Alana, we started the new year off with our new format, kind of influenced by listening to you guys. Like instead of just doing 2 shows, let's make it one nice long piece of show. And we weren't able for the year to bring back our game. So you have this thing, the game with no name.
Okay.
And usually
we're 2-2. We're 2-2 by the way.
And we usually let our producer judge it, but we want you to be the judge today. And basically, we both have to convince you to watch a show or start a game or just you have to pick who won.
Okay.
Who did the best job of convincing you to watch this show or play this game or watch this documentary or whatever the case may be? We each pick one. Today, producer David is taking part in this, so this could become a 2-2-1 situation. And the reason why David is taking part of this is because he threatened us last week and said, next time we do this, I have something that I'm going to bust both of your asses.
Yeah, he basically said like he has
coming in right now.
He has a cannon.
So I'm not gonna lie, David. You made me a little nervous. I might be a little gun shy, but we'll see. You're gonna go last. You're gonna go.
I'm gonna go last.
Yeah, you're gonna go last. Because no, you put all the pressure on. You're gonna go last.
Well, the pressure's on myself now.
You're gonna go last. Timmy's gonna go first because I don't want to go first.
So basically, I've one of my favorite shows, Ozark, came back last week. And Jason Bateman, you only know him for comedy, right? So I'm like, I'm actually, I always said, Brian, I think I'm disturbed. It's hard for me to watch good stuff like comedy. I always watch sci-fi or mafia or drugs. So
I also don't like comedy. So
we
can. Damn, all right.
So I'm like, Jason Bateman.
There goes my choice.
I don't feel like laughing, but he's a accountant for this guy, and find the first episode that his business partner has stolen from the mafia. A gun to his head. He's about to die, and he said, "You know what? I could launder money for you." And he just looked. He saw. I think where's Ozark, in Minnesota or Mississippi or wherever Ozarks are.
I haven't seen Ozark yet, so
no. Where is it? Like it's a lake in the States. But whatever,
Arkansas. I think it's Arkansas or something.
He saw a sign. He's like,
ain't nobody here know
about
Arkansas like that.
I don't know.
He was like, I would launder money for you. So he has literally the trigger about to blow. So he's move his whole family to the Ozark, this shitty redneck state, a bunch of bunch of bad people, trailer park, whatever. And you actually, so first of all, you hate his wife, you hate his children, and you have to be a good actor for someone to hate you. But for 4 seasons, he's laundering money for the mafia. I mean, he buys up everything, and it's just like it's so interesting because first of all, the art of laundering. I love mafia shows, so it just shows you how crazy numbers are. So I think you'll enjoy it because it gets you thinking. So Ozark is my pick.
I mean, you don't like comedy, Allana, so I'm cooked.
I don't. Michael gets on me. He's like, "You don't want to be happy." I'm like,
right.
Comedy doesn't make me happy. Like, I want my brain to be stimulated, and I want to I like dark and twisty shows. So yeah, I'm not a comedy girl, but
do you like dark humor?
Yeah, but see, I like it when it's sprinkled in. I don't like when the whole premise is to be funny.
I wouldn't say this. Look, I'm not going to win this round. I know that. I'm not going to. Based on you picking Ozark and David, whatever fucking haymaker you're about to come up with, I'm not going to win.
I'm not so confident anymore. All of a sudden,
I'm just going to tell y'all. I'm just going to tell y'all what I'm watching right now. And Timmy, we've talked about this already. I've been glued to Peacemaker since it got on HBO Max, and that shit has been going on.
So the reason why I was 2 minutes late to this pod, I was watching this week's episode of Peacemaker.
Yeah,
I don't know if I've even heard of this actually.
So Timmy knows because you're into the superhero shit. I'm not into superhero shit, but I'm into wrestling, and John Cena's a wrestler, and John Cena starts as the Peacemaker.
Okay.
So it's on HBO Max. It's kind of a dark comedy, but it's not really it's not trying to make you laugh. There's no fucking laugh track or anything like that, right? But it's just it's a humorous sort of superhero. Like if you've ever seen The Flash, I guess it's something like that, except a little more lighthearted, where the superhero, as Dan Le Batard said, and I like how he put it, the superhero's kind of in on the joke of how ridiculous it is, kind of like Deadpool. So it's like that. And the superhero stuff is also not really over the top. So it's a comedy. it could be pretty stimulating. I like shit that's stimulating. Like I like documentaries. I don't like movies, for example, right? Like movies are a little like too, all right, like there's always a happy ending. I don't always want a miserable ending either, but I want shit that's grounded in reality. Hence this book right behind me that I wrote. It's realistic fiction. So it's like, it's a show that I'm still very early in on, but it's getting a lot of great reviews. I got to say, Timmy will attest to this. The applause has been universal. And it's getting in a lot of people like me who you wouldn't think would be into this kind of shit. It takes place after the Suicide Squad, which I didn't even watch. I just know what happens. So I was able to get into it, and it's pretty seamless. I'm probably not going to win this round, but that's what I got. David, go ahead.
All right. So keeping with the crime and the mafia theme, a little bit of family, but I'm going to go geographically a little bit different for you guys. We're going to go Yellowstone.
Oh, I've heard of this.
I have heard of this too.
In season 4, just wrapped up. Basically, it's about a family of ranchers in Montana, near the Yellowstone National Park. There's a lot of intrigue in terms of people trying to take over their business. It's basically like cowboy mafioso, right? So you've got the family dynamic with this family with political layers and ambitions. Like the head of the family, the patriarch is running for governor, and there's a lot of violence. The daughter is crazy, which she's very rogue and she's wild, which is good. And she's married to the head ranch hand, Rip. So she's like a sophisticated girl with a Mercedes, and then this guy's out here like shooting people, riding away on a horse. So there's a lot of diversity, even though it's basically all Caucasians. So the thing is, it's like a soap opera with horses.
Who's in it?
Kevin Costner.
Is
the lead.
You should start with that.
I kind of buried that. Thank you, Allana.
You buried
Yeah,
that.
well, it was like this is gonna sway me. Yeah, let me.
There's a lot of famous actors in like Peacemaker also. I just don't be knowing them like that.
It's like Dances with Wolves because there's a lot of Indian crossover, a lot of Native American plot themes. So it's a pretty deep show.
Is it like Red Dead Redemption?
Yeah, but it's not in the 1800s.
It sounds like a mix between the remake of Dallas and then Big Sky. If anyone's been watching that.
Yeah, that's very accurate. Actually, that's very accurate. But I think it's an intriguing show.
I think we lost, Brian. I think we lost.
Yeah,
you just have Kevin Costner. I mean,
right. That kind of
Yeah, we lost.
Well, I couldn't lead with that. I couldn't just say Kevin Costner is the patriarch. I had to kind of build a foundation.
Brian's definitely out, but I think Yellowstone sounds intriguing. I think I think you won.
2-2-1. See? Yes, 2-2-1. Look at that. Hit us over the head with that.
And you know what? Actually, Allana, since you don't like comedy, I had to pivot. That was an immediate
You had another
pivot.
Okay, so you're gonna jump in again.
So I tainted a little bit. I shouldn't have said that.
No, actually, you kind of made me think on my feet, so I appreciate that.
No, me also, because like when I was going into this, I had a strategy. And you said you don't like comedy, and I'm looking at my list, and I'm like, everything here is pretty funny. Like, what am I gonna do? Like, and wait, do you play video games, Allana?
No.
Yeah, so that wouldn't have worked either. Like, that would have been my alternative. And it's like, I looked over, I'm like, could she be a gamer? Will I be able to but no.
See, and the thing is, I have heard of Ozark before. I like when people get too into a show, it kind of turns me off almost when like the hype is too much, which is why I never watch it. I actually think I would like that show, but I was like, for a minute there, everyone and their mom were talking about it. So I was like, I don't know, but I've never heard of
it's Netflix's best show, like numbers wise. But
I must say, okay.
David,
it's very dark. And
you gotta wait till people calm down, yo. That's how I am with. That's how I kind of am with Succession. I'm like,
hey, buddy.
People are beating not you, Timmy. But people are beating me over the head with it, and I'm like, I know I'm gonna enjoy it, but like, give me some time.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like, there's still basketball season. It's hard to pick up shows during basketball season.
What network is it on? Because I actually want to watch that now. Like, what streaming service is it on?
What?
Oh, Yellowstone?
Yeah,
it's on Paramount Plus.
Okay.
Or no, I'm sorry, regular Paramount.
Okay,
I got those two confused. So regular, there's Paramount. Everything has a plus now.
Yeah,
so many pluses
it's
now.
insane. It's insane.
Like, do I need ESPN Plus? I don't even like regular ESPN now.
Have you seen
size ESPN?
Have you seen the South Park that takes place post-pandemic, where everything is a plus and everything has like a plus in it.
That's hilarious.
That's a good recommendation. You should watch that. Watch the new South Park Pandemic special. That shit was fucking funny.
I'm keeping mine.
Alana doesn't like to laugh, so I don't know if she would want to see South Park.
I like to laugh in like real life.
We are
but-
dark people, Alana. We don't want to watch.
Yeah,
comedy.
I'm a darker soul, even though it doesn't always show. But
Timmy saying we are dark people to Alana is just a perfect way to end the show. We did it for an hour. Alana, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Watch her, listen to her on Feel the Heat. Follow her on Twitter, which we put out up here periodically, and it should be in the description somewhere. And if you want to plug anything else you're doing, please feel free to do so.
No, yeah, just Feel the Heat. We're going every week, so you can hear me and Michael argue. Me and Michael got into our biggest fight, I think, 2 episodes ago, to the point of we were like, are we okay? Like, because usually like we argue a little bit, but it was over Duncan. And after we wrapped, we like kind of like we stopped recording and then just kind of looked at each other over Zoom and we're like, we're fine, right? Like this didn't like actually ruin our friendship because we got into it. So that's a fun episode to listen to.
I'm gonna tune into that one. I'm gonna find it. All right. Everybody enjoy your day. The Heat are playing the Celtics at the night of we're recording this. So just try to keep a level head. A lot of people are just living and dying with every possession.
Every level head? I'm sorry.
We're like 50 games in, and I'm looking at like some of these group chats, and I'm like, yo, are y'all okay?
Like, I muted most of them because I'm like, we can't be doing this.
Thank you again, Allana. For Timmy Bain, I'm Bryan Fonseca. This has been the Bahamarican Boys. We'll see you again next Monday with
9 a.m. every Monday.
I don't know who, but we'll figure it out. It may just be us, or it may be a guest. We'll see.